Welcome to another detailed model review from yesterday's airlines, and today's model up for a close-up look is this China United stroke People's Liberation Army Air Force Boeing 737-800 by NG Models. Now this model is quite interesting in that it is a relatively limited edition release by NG. They seem to have put out a few Chinese specific releases related to the COVID mess, and they all come in a box which has this picture here on it. So there's this one, there's a Chongqing A321, which I don't think actually is out yet. There's a Sichuan A321, but this one doesn't seem to have been advertised very much, and in fact I don't think I've seen it on any site outside of China, so I picked this up off of Taobao. These releases are unusual in that they come with a collector's card, so you can see that this is number 173 of 500, which is actually quite a large run, but nonetheless, there's 1 billion people in China, I guess. So it's a relatively unusual model. I haven't seen many for sale, I haven't come across many, and it is the subject of today's review. Now the review itself, as all my reviews, comes in 3 parts. Firstly, the mould. Secondly, the livery, and thirdly, the print and construction quality. And overall, you can get a maximum score of 30. So let's get into this review, starting by looking at whether this looks at all like a 737-800 or not. So, does it look like a 737? Clearly it does. NG don't make bad molds, do they? Let's be honest. And this is another very nice example of what they can achieve. It looks really good. It's got a excellent pointy nose, it's got decent engines, it's got a good set of wings on it, the fuselage is good. I haven't got any major issues with the overall shape of the aircraft whatsoever. This is pretty easily the best 737 next generation mold that has ever been produced in 400 scale. And there have been quite a few, let's be honest. And some of them are quite good, some of them are less good. I've got some examples of some of the more recent contenders in the background here, so we can have a quick look at these and, you know, point out why I don't think they're as good as this delightful NG version. First off, we'll start with the Phoenix one. I don't have too many Phoenix model 737-800s. The mold is just, yeah, okay. You look at the transition from the cockpit to the nose cone, it's not great. The nose itself is a little round. It's an okay mold, you know. I don't hate it, I just don't love it. Phoenix have got a dreadful habit of making a mess of putting the undercarriage on. You see it's got a huge tyre tab on this release actually. But the biggest issue with Phoenix 737s is that they can't print cockpit windows to save their life. This one's good, mostly they're not good, quite often they're incredibly lopsided. Oh, hey, this one's lopsided too, but not too badly. You know, it's an okay 737. The undercarriage is also a bit weird, and it's kind of too straight, isn't it? It's almost pointing forwards. But yeah, this is an okay mould, but it's nothing special. And certainly Phoenix don't really compete here as far as I'm concerned. Moving on to, you know, the JC Wings version. Again, this has actually been improved quite substantially by JC Wings. It actually is a decent contender nowadays. The nose is quite nice and pointy. In fact, I quite like the area here. Less happy with the size of the nose gear and how it sits so close to the gear doors, but it's an okay mold. You know, it's just not quite there. I think the antenna are a little large and just not quite working as nicely as if you try and compare the two. Maybe you can just, you know, make a decision for yourself really, but it's not quite got the same level of quality, but it is a decent mold. You know, I don't dislike the JC Wings 737-800. I don't love it. Actually, my favorite alternative is probably the old Panda model. This is a particularly nice example of a China United 737-800 from Panda. I've got a lot of Panda 737-800s because I like collecting Chinese airliners, and for a while Panda produced a lot of interesting Chinese airliners. They've pretty much stopped nowadays, it seems. Hard to say exactly what they're doing. Allegedly, they're producing a new 737-800, which is presumably what that Poseidon will be released on, and this mould is no longer being used. This, however, is a nice mould. I like it. I've got a lot of them. Like I say, the engine exhaust isn't great. The main gear is a bit weak, but overall, it's a better 737-800 than that Phoenix or that JC Wings. But it isn't as good as this NG Models version. Now, this has been criticised, this mould, a little bit. NG Models moulds tend to come in for a huge amount of scrutiny compared to other people's moulds. And what it's been criticised for is the length of the undercarriage, especially the nose gear. However, on this version, you can see it's not a problem. It's perfectly fitted, it's right length. Whereas on this version, which is from the same release month, I think, you can see the nose gear is substantially longer. If you put them close side by side, you can see that it sits a lot higher, the Joy Air version, and that's because the gear is not quite as good. Now, it's not necessarily an issue with the mould. I think it's really just an issue with them fitting the actual tyre to the aircraft. It still doesn't bother me that much, though, to be honest. In fact, it still looks pretty good. I quite like this Joy Air example. But certainly this version here that we're reviewing in this video is got a really nicely fitted gear. Nothing wrong with it. It's a 10 out of 10, isn't it, really? So, 10 out of 10 for the mould. It's the best 737 next generation by a country mile, and it's really nicely done. Okay, on to the livery. So obviously this is a military model. It is the People's Liberation Army Air Force. That was once called China United, but nowadays China United Airlines, like the aircraft in the background, is a low-cost subsidiary, which is, I think, technically owned by Shanghai Airlines, who themselves are owned by China Eastern. So it's not really China United anymore, it's just the PLAAF. The scheme is pretty much the same scheme that they have used since the 90s when they got some Tupolev 154s. It's pretty sober, but it's not unattractive. And, you know, NG are doing well here, as typically they do. So, looking at the tail, you can see that we've got a good version here of the flag. It's difficult, sorry, the camera's struggling to focus, but it's got a good flag on the tail. It's got nice striping. It's got the registration B-4081. It's got the star in the stripe there on the rear, correctly outlined in yellow. The colours are good, a light blue, kind of red, and a dark, very dark blue. And they come down and taper towards the nose cone, as you'd expect. The aircraft also has the anti-glare panel forward of the cockpit windows, and it's got this little crest, which is hard to see because, as I say, the camera is refusing to do what it's supposed to be doing, but it is nicely done. It's got a wing by the side of some kind of roundel. It's a well done scheme, and NG have obviously looked at pictures and done their job properly here. It also has the correct number of blocked out windows here, which are presumably where the in-flight torture chambers are, or something. You know, I'm no fan of the People's Liberation Army Air Force, but nonetheless, it's a good model, and NG have not made any errors as far as I can see in terms of the rendition. So, can't give it anything but a 10 there. It's pretty much perfect in terms of that as well. So, that's 10 for the mould, that's 10 for the livery. Will it get the perfect 30 out of 30? Let's look in the next section at construction and printing. Okay, well, usually this is the part of the review where I put the model on a stand and move it around a bit, but oddly, NG Models 737s just don't come with a stand hole. I don't know why that is. NG have always been a bit weird when it comes to stands. They were going to produce their own for a while there, and I even got a pre-production version of the one for the 757. Yeah, models, they don't all have stands, and this one doesn't. It's highly unusual, so I can't put it on a stand, but anyway, forgive me for that. But we're here to talk about the printing quality of this model, and as you can see, it's up to the usual high quality of NG. If anything, it's almost too good, actually. When you look at pictures of this plane, you just can't see the nose radome line unless you're really paying attention. And here, it's actually, even though it's been printed really finely, you can see it almost too clearly. Yeah, it's slightly off-putting, actually. I don't know, maybe I'm just being ultra picky, because it's correct to have it, but it's just hard to see at 400 scale. So otherwise, it's excellent. I'm not 100% certain I've actually got the shape of the anti-glare quite correct either, but again, I think I'm just being too nitpicky, because if this were anyone else's model, I probably would need me looking at that sort of thing. There's nothing wrong with this print-wise. I'm not going to knock any points off for those things I just said. I mean, I'm just being difficult, looking for excuses to dock points. It's a beautiful model. It's beautifully rendered. There's nothing wrong with the print. It's got really good detailing across the board, as I tend to expect from NG. And as you can also see, everything's attached correctly, and it's got quite a high number of aerials, because it's actually got 3 on the bottom side, which is nice, a nice touch. And they're all nicely fitted. The aerials for NG are well sized, substantially smaller than the sort of big aerials you get on the JC Wing 737s. This is a really good model. I'm searching for things that are wrong with it, and I'm not really finding any, so I'm going to stop searching. This clearly is going to get top marks. I don't give top marks out very often. In fact, I've probably only given top marks out once or twice in the whole history of me doing reviews now, and I've probably done like 200 or 300 of them. But NG have scored top marks a few times, and that's because they produce really high quality models. The molds are great, they generally do good livery research, and they can actually then reproduce it, and the printing is sublime. And of course, they go the extra mile and dare to get you the model in one piece, at least most of the time. So, they deserve the plaudits they're getting, let's be honest. Anybody who's got real major issues with NG at this point in time, I haven't seen the evidence, for having real issues. Yeah, not every mold's perfect, not every model's perfect, but most of them are near perfect. I've yet to score one under 25, I think. I'm probably under 26 or 27 actually. So, it's a good model. It's a great model. It's an excellent model. It's a really nice addition, and I really like the 737-800 from NG models. Yeah, I'd rather have 75s than TriStars myself, but I can always find an excuse to go out and buy some 737s too. So this is a good model. And now, if you enjoyed the video, as always, subscribe. Take a look at my website, Yesterday's Airlines, which is chock full of information on the molds, on the releases, and just about 400 scale in general. And if you want to see my written detailed reviews, go to modelairliner.com. Thanks very much for watching. See you later.